Hey everybody, I'm Ryan, this is The Will to Make, and today I'm going to show you how I built this step stool.
So I started off this project with a single 2x4. I set up a stop on my miter saw and cut 4 boards down to 1 foot long to make the 2 steps. I also cut 2 more at a foot long to become the middle and back legs. The last 2 pieces were for the front legs and the bottom. These were cut at 4.5 inches and 1 foot and 1 inch. Next, with all my pieces other than the steps, I ran them through the table saw to get a clean edge and remove the round over from the 2x4s. Then, with that cleaned up edge along the fence, I cut each piece down to 2 1.5 inch pieces. For my middle legs, I needed to cut a big notch out. The bottom of the notch is where the bottom step will sit. These were cut over on the bandsaw. With my bottom feet that will rest on the ground, I needed to pre-drill for some screws to be able to screw into the bottom of each leg. These were also countersunk. Next, using a pocket hole jig, I drilled into the end of each board. Now that everything was cut, I glued up my 2 steps. I simply applied some wood glue and clamped the boards together and set them aside to dry. While these were drying, I decided to give all my other pieces a quick sanding up to 120 grit, since these are just going to be painted. Also, I have links to all the tools and materials I use in this video in the description below, so please check them out. I then pre-installed pocket hole screws on these smaller legs, since they will be hard to install later on. I could then start to assemble the legs. I used glue and screwed a pocket hole screw up through the bottom into each of the legs. This was done twice for both of the leg assemblies. Once assembled, I sanded each down again to flush up where all the pieces met. Since I was going to paint, I filled all the cracks with drywall putty to make everything smooth as possible. While the putty dried, I pulled the 2 steps out of the clamps and sanded each one down up to 220 grit. I also rounded off all the edges and corners. With these sanded down, I wiped on some dark walnut wood stain. I applied it using a rag, and after it was coated, I came back with a new rag and wiped off all the excess stain. They were then set aside to dry. With the leg assemblies, I sanded down the drywall putty and applied several coats of semi-gloss white paint. Once the stain had dried for the steps, I applied 3 coats of the semi-gloss polyurethane, sanding in between coats with 220 grit sandpaper. Once everything was dry, it was time for the final assembly. I first sanded down where I will apply glue on the steps and on the legs. Then I applied some wood glue to the top of the legs and screwed the step in place using pocket hole screws. Once the top was on, I could do the same with the bottom step. And with that, this project was complete. I'm very happy with how it came out, and it's super sturdy to stand on. I was also worried about it trying to tip forward while stepping on the top step, but found it wasn't an issue at all. Please leave a comment of what you would like to see next, and if you like this video, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe if you haven't already, and I'll see you next time.